Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poisonous Sky, written by Helen Reiner and is directed by Douglas McEdam. I think that's how you pronounce his name. This is actually his first story he directed for the series. He would later go on to direct some 11th and 12th Doctor stories during the Stephen Moffat era. Now this has a lot going for it, but let's talk about the writer to begin with, because Helen Reiner was actually hugely reluctant to return to the series after her first written story for Doctor Who, which was the Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks, was poorly received by a majority of people. She was hesitant to return. She thought, that like the fan base was getting her down. She didn't feel like she was a particularly great writer for Doctor Who, and she was happy to just step back and stay as a script editor for the series. However, Russell T Davies basically sat her down and was like, listen, don't listen to the fan bases. You're a great writer. I want you to write another two-parter for the next series, which is, oddly enough, the episodes 4 and 5 of the series, the same episodes which she wrote last season, episodes 4 and episodes 5. This story features the return of a few elements. It's the first story in the revived series that heavily features UNIT, with their small little cameo appearances in stories like Aliens of London and World War 3, and I'm sure they've been mentioned in other stories as well. But here UNIT gets its first proper full story interaction with the Doctor in the revived series. The organisation has changed a bit. They feel a lot more military than like a modern day military, with their black uniforms, and they have these like red French hats of sorts, compared to their green suits that they used to wear in which made them have a much more like authority, like a more like a police kind of thing than this version of UNIT. So that's kind of interesting. It also features the return of Agma Freeman as Martha Jones, who left Doctor Who last series and had also appeared in 3 episodes of Torchwood. She would also appear in 3 episodes in Doctor Who. This two-parter and the next story. And also return in the finale as well. It also features the return of the Sontarans, making their first revived series debut. Now here, they haven't been seen since the 2 Doctors, the 6th Doctor story when he meets the 2nd Doctor. But as for we on this marathon, we've actually tackled a handful of Sontaran stories during our marathon. Like, for example, the Sontaran ordeal with the 8th Doctor, and also as well, what's it called? The one with the War Doctor. We tackled the one with the War Doctor. I can't remember what that one was called. That's really bad. I do apologise. But those stories feature a new revived era version of the Sontarans, which are mainly played by 2 actors specifically. Dan Starkey, who makes his Doctor Who debut in this story, as well as Christopher Ryan. Now, Christopher Ryan, I mostly known him for his role as Kev in the classic series story Mind Warp, and we've also tackled a story with him that was released after this, Syl and the Devil Seeds of Avador. But this is his first time in the series where he played a Sontaran. Of course, he would play Sontarans in audio drama pre-canon to this story. So we've already tackled his performance, but it's, he is one of the most iconic voices, and his voice just fits so perfectly with the Sontaran, that military pride about them. And the fact that you have this story about UNIT and Sontarans. There's this whole military feeling to this adventure. It's a lot like, it feels like the Doctor Who's closest thing it'll get to like Stargate. If anybody knows that franchise, where it's like a military interacting with aliens, it's kind of that kind of feeling, that kind of atmosphere about it. And so, if you're a fan of Stargate, I say just check this one out. As for the popular consensus of this story, it is considered by many to be a it was alright. Most people seem to like the Sontarans, like Martha Jones in it, and like the overall story. However, there are a few nuggets in this adventure. I remember watching this when it first aired and thought I didn't like certain elements of it, like the Sontaha kind of thing, which kind of felt back then as they're trying to force a catchphrase for the Sontarans, who never really had a catchphrase beforehand, if you don't count I am part of the Sontaran fleet, or something like I am Commander Singh of the 6th Sontaran fleet. So yeah, there's a little bit of nugget, but does the story hold up? Well, before that, I just want to say, I just want to talk about that. This is the official vanilla release, which also includes the Doctor's Daughter and the Unicorn and the Wasp. As it is the two-part of the disc, it features the Sontarans and Martha Jones heavily, which are the main aspects of the story. And I love this purple glow on it, which is a resemblance to the Sontarans' battle cruiser in the episode. Their lighting has this lovely, gorgeous purple lighting. The story, it makes you think purple. There's a lot of purple lighting in this. But anyway, because this is the first story and the two-parter on this disc, I made my own DVD cover. Well, I printed it out. So, shall we put these together and then we'll talk about it, okay? 1, 2, 3. There you go. So this is what it looks like when it's on my shelf. This is, of course, done by Christopher Doctor Who DVD covers. You can find his work on the internet easy. Just type in Doctor Who DVD covers Christopher. It usually is the first one that pops up. I love how it keeps the purple. Like, you think the story, the first thing you think is purple. And I love the symmetry there of the companions and the unit soldier. I can't remember his name. And the young genius boy, Doctor and Sontaran in the middle. And you've got this burning earth behind them. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. And it does easily, I think it's one of his best works. It looks really professional. You can imagine this beyond on the shelves. It just looks really nice. Here's the spine. So the story is just called the Sontaran Stratagem. I know, it's 2 episodes and they've each got individual episode names, but generally people just call it the Sontaran Stratagem. So there's the back, which kind of gives it away. It's not one of mine. I do not take any credit for doing this. I just printed it out and put it on. The art is all done by Christopher Doctor Who DVD covers. I highly recommend you check him out. So anyway, that's the DVD cover. So let's get on to the story at hand. The pre-credit sequence in part 1 basically sets up this evil organization where this woman, she's getting chucked out, literally thrown out of this building after she's been investigating Atmos, this device that this company has made, where they put them into cars and it gives you free sat-nav as well. But the main thing that Atmos does is reduce your carbon footprint to 0%. 0%. And this woman kind of sees something fishy about it. And so this small group of teenagers led by the kid genius, I can't remember his name. Wait, what's his name? Ratican, that's it, there he goes. Ratican is this evil kid's genius who seems to be working with a hidden monster. Of course, it's the Sontarans, and they seem to have full control of any car which is fitted with Atmos technology, and they throw her in a lake, killing her, but there's also been deaths all around the world all simultaneously, and all the cars have in common is that they were fitted with Atmos. And so that leads into the present of the story, but not before the Doctor and Donna are actually practicing flying the TARDIS. Donna is actually flying the TARDIS, and Donna's like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And the Doctor, I love the Doctor's like, I can't believe you're doing this. How the hell are you doing this? Like, the idea that the Doctor tries to teach his companions how to fly the TARDIS is just so adorable. Like, sure, we have seen companions learn how to fly the TARDIS before. Or at least it's been hinted at with Nessa, and, well, Romana was a Time Lord anyway, so she already had control of the TARDIS. I believe Adric as well. But to have Donna, there's just something just so innocent and adorable about that the Doctor's trying to teach her how to fly the TARDIS. But then there's a phone call, and Donna's like, wait a minute, you have a phone call? You have a phone? The Doctor replies with, it's not mine, and he answers it. Hello? And on the other line, hello Doctor, it's me, and I'm taking you back to Earth. And it's revealed it's Martha Jones. She is calling back up to the Doctor, and then that leads into a credit sequence. A very good way of starting it is I just love the idea of Martha Jones just ringing up the Doctor because she needs his help, especially when we learn since Torchwood that she is working with UNIT now, something which actually does carry on into the main series. As in this, we see her basically at her job at UNIT, and the idea here then is like they have this really lovely moment, and right off the bat, this dynamic works. I love how, due to the Doctor's ego and as well his last experiences with Rose and Sarah Jane, he automatically assumes that they are going to argue, they're going to bitter, and as a viewing audience, we do kind of suspect some rivalry, because Martha Jones did have this love for the Doctor, and, you know, she's kind of been replaced, whilst Donna Noble has always been like this silly character, and, you know, she's always this goofy. But they are really nice with each other, really calm, and they have this just this lovely chemistry with each other. Margaret Freeman and Catherine Tate. Like, I just love that. If any writer weaker than Helen Reiner was writing this, they would have Donna and Martha bicker at each other and argue. And no, here they get along so well, and they joke about their relationship with the Doctor, but also as well, there are some serious moments and there are some generally touching aspects about them, and this plays into the story and plays with essentially Donna's theme of the story, which again, the way Donna is utilised in her stories is it's just fascinating. How they had Donna Noble, the annoying woman from The Runaway Bride, just so happens to be one of the greatest utilised companions, maybe of the entire series. Like, each episode, she kind of learns a little bit about herself and a little bit about this lifestyle, and it's just absolutely incredible. Now, it's here that after a small little moment, Martha basically reveals that she is basically at the line of her work, that she is with current unit soldiers, and they're coming down and taking down this factory, and the Doctor and Donna are kind of shocked by this. And Donna is like, so that's what you do after you leave us. You turn us into soldiers? And that does kind of scare Donna a bit, but she doesn't blame Martha. She kind of blames the Doctor, which I find is very strange and very fascinating. And it leaves a great dynamic here, as Donna and Martha have this sort of friendship, but Martha, in terms of Donna's representation, is kind of like, she's kind of like looking into a sort of future as Martha kind of just warns Donna about how life of the Doctor is when you get longer onto it and stay used to it. There's a great scene in which Martha Jones says to Donna, it's like, does your family know what you're doing? And then Martha basically explains what happened to her family, that they were imprisoned and tortured. And it's not the Doctor's fault, but I just want to let you know this lifestyle is dangerous. The Doctor is like fire. This lifestyle with the Doctor is like fire. It's absolutely beautiful, but you stand too close and people get burnt. That is amazing dialogue, and it just puts you in the mindset of both characters and why Martha wouldn't return as a full-on companion, but also, this puts Donna in this sense. It's like, oh God, I didn't really think about my family. I thought, I'd keep this to myself and hopefully they won't get hurt. But that might not even be an option. That might not even be a choice. And so later on, Donna decides to go home in a very humorous moment where the Doctor is like saying his goodbyes, and he's like, "There's so many places I was going to take you," and he has this magnificent speech, which is very cliched for the 10th Doctor at this point. This was brilliant. There's so many places I was going to take you and all that. The destroyed moons of Elador or something like that. Until he quickly realizes, when you said you're going to go home, you mean only for a visit, and then you'll be back. And Donna's just like, you absolute plonk. But backtracking a bit, in terms of their relationships, we learn that the unit have been working on Atmos for a while, and they have found nothing wrong with it. So they decided to get their scientific advisor of Alien, the best person they know. And the Doctor, I love how the Doctor doesn't, it's like, oh yeah, who did you get? Oh yeah, me, yes, good, well done. I love Donna's and Martha's reaction to that. But we get a small little moment of the Doctor and Martha, in which the Doctor is basically, he's being aggressive at one of the generals because he has a gun. This is something which New Who is kind of like, the Doctor's always been against guns, don't get me wrong, but he worked for UNIT. He understands that in terms of military, and this life is dangerous, you do have to kind of defend yourself, and they are supposed to be like the border, the control, and though, like, yes, he still was always against guns, like, he kind of understood the idea. But in new series, especially later on with the 12th Doctor, doctors and guns, like, that's always like a big concern with the Doctor. I don't quite understand it, especially how this is after the Time War. The Doctor was a soldier in the Time War. He had to basically kill all of his entire people. He should understand, like, he should at least sympathise. But I guess some could argue that it's a cold reminder of his past, and so he hates it, and so that's why there's this whole aggressiveness to soldiers. In fact, this story starts a theme of the Doctor not wanting a salute. Like, people salute him, and the Doctor's like, oh, please don't salute, please don't. Something which is really new to the revived series of Doctor Who, and I think that's to do with his idea that in the Time War he doesn't think in his mind he deserves it, and so there's that into it. But the Doctor and Martha have this small little scene in which the Doctor's kind of not angry but annoyed at Martha for being in an organisation which runs on guns and it's got a lot of weapons, and Martha is like, oh, you're a bit aggressive, that's a bit stupid what your argument is. Anyway, you technically got me the job. I got you. Also, am I carrying a gun? No. Because maybe there's a chance that me being on the inside, I can make these people, these soldiers, into better people. And the doctor just smiles at her and goes, that's the Martha I know. And she's just like, I learned from the best. Brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. I love that small little moment. And it's just a nice little reminder that Martha and the doctor were some of the best pairings. And these actors just, they have this small little bond. But in the factory, there's certain things that don't add up. Donna notices that there's an empty folder, and it is of people's sick days. Nobody has taken a sick days. You were looking at the factory. You should have been looking at the workers. And so the unit interview some of these soldiers. Martha does a medical on one of them, and he seems to be hypnotized. We get the scene of these two soldiers. They have found a secret room in the factory, and there is some sort of humanoid creature living in this this green liquid, and it seems to be not fully grown, as an umbilical cord is still attached to the back of its neck. And then we get our first full introduction to the Sontarans. They kept the short aspect of them, and I like how this story isn't afraid to have a little bit of humour at the expense of the Sontarans, but it's played just in a way, just enough, and it's very well utilised, where the humour doesn't distract from the deadliness of the Sontarans. As this one soldier who's really cocky, he makes a lot of short jokes and is very confident, because it's like, it's just a Sontaran, it's a silly little short little alien man. But right off the bat, Sontaran tortures him, and it's like, I'm sorry that I couldn't kill you. Killing has more honour. But on the other hand, you are needed for a greater purpose, for the great Sontaran Empire. And right off the bat, their personalities, the way that they are written is spot on Sontarans. It's literally just the classic series put into the revived series, in a way which the dialogue is a little bit modernised, where the prideness of it is more established. But apart from that, these are the same Sontarans of the classic series. Sure, they might look different, sure they have different designs, but it's the same Sontarans, and that's just absolutely brilliant. Now, the main Sontaran here is, what's his name? Sontaran, I believe his name is Starl, the Undefeated, played by Christopher Ryans in his first role as a Sontaran in the series. And his voice, that, these are the words of women. It's a shame you use words. Words are the weapons of the women folk. He has this. So he just has this general military presence about him that the Doctor was a great enemy of ours. He was fought in a war that the Sontarans weren't allowed to be. He just has that authority about him, which really makes him fit extraordinarily well as the leader of the Sontarans in this story. And there's just so much, because this is a two-parter. I know I haven't really talked much, but I've noticed I'm kind of running out of time, so I'll just kind of talk about just the generalness of the story of it. The Sontarans here are used extraordinarily well. I especially love Sontaran stories which they can't just solve a problem by shooting on it. It is very reminiscent of their first appearance in the Time Warrior. We have the Sontarans who just want to go to war, they just want to fight, and they have this prideness of dying in battle. But they are put into a situation where that cannot be an option. They have to be sneaky. They have to be. They have to make allies with particular humans to try and make them go against their wishes. And in this case, they team up with Ratigan, this boy genius, and basically tell him that you can start a new world, collect a handful of humans who you think are intelligent enough to continue, and we will take them and put them onto this new planet as we just destroy Earth, essentially telling him that he's basically Noah from Noah's Ark. And the idea that they are, the Sontarans are like this, and they're basically kind of going against the Sontarans' values, and the Doctor knows this, and every time he interacts with them, he kind of tries to push them to be more Sontaran in a vain hope that they will slip up. There's a great moment in which the Doctor is talking to him on the screen, and he's basically antagonizing them. It's like, us Sontarans supposed to die with dignity, but then you're up there in the sky watching the humans die. You're an absolute coward, Stahl. And when they do their rants, they do Sontaha, Sontaha. The Doctor just turns off the screen and changes the channel before turning it back. As the unit soldiers are just like, wait a minute, you are not authorized to speak on the behalf of the human race. But the Doctor just flat out ignores him. And David Tennant is a big fan of Doctor Who, and like fans of Doctor Who when they get the role of the Doctor, you'd find that they take little elements of Doctors that they like. Am I the only one who thought that when the Doctor was speaking to the Sontaran on the screen, you get visions of the Ninth Doctor? That scene is so similar to that scene in Parting of the Waves, or is it Bad Wolf, in which the Doctor's talking to the Daleks on the screen, where he's kind of playful, he's kind of cheerful, but it's kind of a strategy to antagonize his enemies, push them into a certain way of thinking, and it's just that the cheeky little grin that Christopher Eccleston does gets transmitted into David Tennant's performance. I don't know if I'm just reading into it too much, but that's what I saw, and I absolutely love it. I wish we got to saw more of this. But anyway, before I get into the more finale elements, let's talk about Ratigan, because one of the main criticisms people have with this story is that they don't like Ratigan, this character who he's this, basically he's a brat. He's this boy genius, and he's a brat, and he always thinks he's right, and when people try to argue with him, he kind of fizzles up, and he gets incredibly annoyed at small little details. For example, there's a scene in which the Doctor is talking about the Atmos system, and he is ranting about how saying Atmos systems is completely stupid. The S in Atmos means system, so essentially you're saying Atmos systems in a way. This is a clear reference to DC fans, in which they refer, they get annoyed when people say DC Comics, because DC stands for Detective Comics, so essentially you're saying Detective Comics. That's the whole point of this scene and this character. He's basically a representation of obsessive nerds, obsessive geeks who basically torture themselves on the idea that things have got to be perfect and it's got to be the way that they imagine the world to be. And this was all summed up when the Doctor just turns at him, really sad with his puppy dog eyes, and just says, "It's been a long time since someone has said no to you, hasn't it?" Basically sympathizing that this person, it's not really him, it's he's grown up in a society which has just constantly told him he's right, and he just doesn't know how to accept just either not being wrong or just or just you know, living in a world where he's just one of the average people. And the Doctor kind of relates to him in certain regards, as the Doctor points out. It's like it must be hard for you living in a world where you have these connections, you have these little details, but nobody else can see them, and you just feel completely alone, completely isolated from the rest of the world. And that means then Rannigan gets a kind of a big role in this story. Despite his role being very separate compared to the rest of the story, his main role in the story is that he has this group of people that he works with, who he's kind of training to become this perfect race. He hasn't told them yet, but they will become this these people in this new world. Later on, they kind of betray him after they realise that he is causing all this destruction, all this catastrophe, as the Sontarans open up the Atmos system, releasing this gas into the atmosphere, which covers the entire world, poisoning the atmosphere and killing anybody who sucks up 80% of this gas. That is the cliffhanger for part one, for those of you curious. And I just want to talk about this element, because this kind of element really doesn't work when you think about it. Because these characters, they betray him at the end. It's like, what are you on about, these things? And they treat them as if like they study him, they tutor him, but they don't just like listen to him blindly. But this goes against with their first scene in the pre-credit sequence, where they are happily willing to throw, like manhandle and throw the person out of the building for this character, which kind of implies this undying loyalty. And then all of a sudden, it's saying that the characterization of these characters just doesn't add up in the story, which means that Rannigan's plotline and his mindset is also tainted in terms of the narrative enjoyment of this, because we as an audience viewer don't know where he stands on this. We don't know his relationship with these people. They don't get enough screen time, and what we see contradicts their own emotions, their own little idiosyncrasies. And so we just, despite the fact that Rannigan is a prominent character in the story, we never get a great feeling for this. And it's a shame, because I feel like the actor does a pretty decent job. Although some scenes he is clearly playing it up a notch. Whether that's down to poor directing on McEdam, sorry if I butchered that name, his fault, or whether it was the actor's fault, who to say, but who knows. The directing here, some scenes look absolutely gorgeous and stunning, and the story is very well handled in terms of directing. I just want to say, for the most part, there are some cheesy performances from some of the actors. But apart from that, in terms of a visual style, there is this very cleanness about the visual look of the story. And it's something which I think this story would hugely benefit on Blu-ray, on 4K or something. This story does look absolutely gorgeous. Now, another big part of the story is Donna's relationship with her family as she goes back home and she meets up with her grandfather, and we get some few scenes of her and her grandfather talking about aliens and her experiences with the TARDIS, and it's like, please don't tell the mother character. And the mother comes in and she's completely oblivious, and she kind of puts Donna back into this normal world. And I like later on where the Doctor interacts with them, and Wilfred, it's like, oh my god, it's you! The Doctor's like, what? Oh, it's you! And Donna's just like, well, you've met! This is obviously a reference to Voyage of the Damned, in which the Doctor and Wilfred met for a small little moment. You can hear me talk more about that in my vlog of Voyage of the Damned, which is on the channel. But the the interactions between Catherine Tate and Bernard Crimmins are just, the roles here are just incredible, absolutely incredible, and the small little humorous moments of Wilfred is like, you better look after my girl, and the doctor's like, she looks after me. It's like, oh yeah, she used to always be like that, bossing people around. She used to be, when she was younger, having a different boy every week. Who's that one with the nail varnish? And these small little moments which could be annoying if they were overutilised or had way too much time dedicated to them. But they are used just enough that they elevate these characters, but not in a way that takes away from the narrative, which is really great. And Helen Reiner, man, she is such an underrated writer, and it is a shame that this would be her final story for the series. I would have loved to have seen her return for an 11th or even 12th Doctor, or even 13th Doctor. Yeah, tell you what, Chris Chibnall, if you're watching this, bring back Helen Reiner. She is a fantastic writer and so underutilised. But anyway, we learn that Martha Jones has been cloned and captured by the Sontarans, and her clone is basically infiltrating UNIT from not releasing nuclear warheads that will head up. And the Doctor is confused about this. They quickly learn that the Sontarans have somehow found themselves way into UNIT, but they're not quite sure how. And the Doctor's confused, like, why would they block the missiles? They won't even scratch the surface of their ship. What's going on? Why are they doing that? We never really get a good explanation as to why, but you can just imagine that it will ignite the gas that they are producing. They kind of need this world safe and protected, in a sense, and that's why they're trying to stop these nuclear warheads. And so the Doctor basically works with Martha, but there's a few scenes which indicates that he knows what's going on. He looks at Martha at one point and is asking her, has she contacted her family about the gas? And she's like, no, I'm going to. But what about Donna? And the Doctor basically states that she's still at home, but at this point she's in the TARDIS, and the TARDIS has been teleported off into the Sontaran's ship. So there's this clear indication that, you know, Martha isn't Martha, and the Doctor knows this. And so the real Martha doesn't get a lot of screen time in this story. She only really appears at the very start of the story, in the first half of the first episode and the second half of the second episode. And in terms of her role in the story, she doesn't have much to do. She gets captured. The clone then is stopping the unit. As the Doctor's trying to work out how to stop the Sontarans, what this gas is and stuff. But luckily we do get a lot of scenes with the clone and Doctor, implying that there is still that connection there. We're still at least observant of it. However, the fact that the fail, we clearly see that the fact that the Doctor does not fall for it so quick, just kind of takes away any dramatic tension that this process from the Doctor's point of view has. And later on, when he finds the real Martha, and the clone points a gun at her, puts a gun at him, the Doctor's just like, am I supposed to be impressed? I was the one who stopped the nuclear code. The Doctor's like, yeah, I know, you did me a great service. I don't know why the Sontarans want to stop the nuclear warheads. However, I'm grateful that you did. And you are that is part of my plan. And so he releases Martha and saves and kills the clone in a way, because their connection. The two Marthas have this great scene. I absolutely love this moment, because the Doctor's basically interrogating the dying clone Martha about what the Sontaran's plan is, and She is like, I'm not talking to him, I'm an enemy. Martha then refers to the clone as Martha, treating her as a human being and as a person that she believes that she is. And it's like, Martha, don't tell to him, talk to me. I can understand. You've been in my head, you can understand, so talk to me. I love these small little moments. It just shows so much character and so much, just so much how much Martha and Donna and the Doctor are in this story. How much they just have these small little moments of caring and kindness, which just elevates these stories, man. Like, I just don't know. I just love these small little moments of kindness. They just really do something for the characters in my eyes. And the clone basically reveals that this gas isn't actually a poisonous gas. It's actually food for the Sontarans. It's clone feed, the Sontarans' food supply. And the Doctor realizes that they are trying to convert the Earth into a giant clone planet so they can win against their war against the Rutans, which gets referenced in the story. The war is still carrying on. So essentially, just everything classic about them is just been pushed into the revived series, and just so cool. The Doctor makes this machine which destroys the gas atmosphere. I'm not too happy about that. One criticism I do have with the story, and it is a really big issue, is that the ending feels rushed. Like, the Doctor just quickly builds this device in Ratigan's lair, and is creates this device, shoots this beam as the gas dissipates. There are some great shots of people celebrating in the streets as the Doctor Forever starts playing triumphantly in the streets. They are great, but the story itself, in terms of narrative, does feel really rushed. And then the Doctor quickly runs back into Ratigan's academy and activates his teleport that Ratigan was using to contact the Sontarans. However, after his people failed to come with him, he quickly learned that the Sontarans were planning on betraying him, and they were never going to help him get to this other planet. They just needed him to get this connection with everybody's cars in the Atmos system. Yeah, they were just using him as a key into Earth's atmosphere. And the Doctor has kind of like little, it's like, just do something with your life, just do something smart. And he basically turns to Donna and he turns to Martha. It's like, you were great, you've saved my lives on so many occasions, thank you. And Donna's just like, you're gonna die, why can't you just put it on a timer and send it to the ship and kill them all that way? But the Doctor's like, I can't, I have to give them a choice. And so the Doctor goes to the Sontaran ship and is like, one press of this button and I destroy all of you. But the Sontarans are just like, we don't care, you kill that, you use that, you kill yourself. That is one of the greatest prides in the Sontaran battleship, that killing the Time Lord, the Doctor, the greatest enemy, one of the greatest enemies of the Sontaran Empire, if it takes down their entire fleet, then so be it. I will sacrifice all of my troops for the one chance of killing you, Doctor. And the Doctor is like begging him, it's like, please just go back, you don't have to, the Sontarans on Sontar don't have to know about this. But then Star the Undefeated is like, just do it! I order you, sir! Before Ratigan does something technical with the teleport system, which teleports the Doctor, but not the device. And so they swap places, and Ratigan actually presses the button, killing him in the process, and all the Sontarans, saving the Doctor, Martha, and Donna. And so we have this nice wrap-up of the soldiers. Martha then goes back into the TARDIS, just remembering the good times, but then is like, I can't now, I've got my own world I need to get back to. She's married to Tom Minigan from from The Sound of Drum, it's Last of the Time Lords. One of those two episodes, the last episode Martha was in the televised series, and the Doctor and Donna hug their goodbyes and to Martha, and Martha's just about to head off. However, the TARDIS doors start closing and starts dematerialising, leaving this story on a cliffhanger in which the Doctor has no idea what's going on. He hasn't touched any controls, as Martha's like, "You get me back, Doctor, get me back to my own time." And that leads into, of course, next story, which we'll talk about next. But anyway, that's the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky. Overall, for the most part, this is a really good story. This shows the Sontarans in a great light, which would make them a great recurring villain for the revised series. However, sadly, that was not meant to be, as this would be their only story dedicated to them. Every other appearance would be either cameos or would feature Strax, a humorous Sontaran ally of the Doctor, later on in the series, played again by Dan Starkey. But this would be the only time where they're the true main villains, which is a crying shame because this story just showed them full potential. The Vatican stuff is very weak and the ending is incredibly rushed. However, the stuff with Donna and Martha and Doctor are utilised extraordinarily well. There are some great moments of Sontarans and Unit, and there's some really intense scenes and some really intense moments, which again, there's just so much I need to talk about, but I've only got a certain amount of time making these videos, so I do apologise. I highly recommend it. A lot of fun. And Helen Reiner is just a really underrated writer in my opinion, and I wish she did more for the series. So anyway, that's the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky. So join me next time when the TARDIS has taken the Doctor, Martha and Donna into the distant future, where there's an army between two warring races of fish people and clones, as one of them gets their hands on the Doctor's DNA and the Doctor gets a surprise. So I'll see you next time for The Doctor's Daughter. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!